Hi, I'm David Baker from Origin Live, and today I'm going to be talking about why vinyl sound isn't just about analog. Now, this is a very nuanced subject, and although I'm pretty sure I'm making a case which is based on accepted knowledge, this topic is up for discussion. The hi-fi industry is a place that is full of opinion, but also full of very hard-earned knowledge, and I'd really like for this to be a space where we can kind of share and learn from each other. Vinyl sound isn't just about analog. So what do I mean by analog? Often the case for vinyl sound is about its analog nature. So you have this idea of signal purity, that you can have analog recording, then analog mastering, and then obviously this is all cut to an analog format, which is vinyl. It's often ignored here that those are three separate, very distinct things, and sadists will say that if you have a digital step in any of those, then when you play your vinyl record, you're actually listening to digital music. Vinyl playback is always analog and never digital. There may be digital steps in the recording or the mastering, but vinyl playback itself is always analog. When vinyl is being made and the grooves are being cut into the lacquer, whatever signal is going to the cutter head on your vinyl cutting lathe is always being transferred into a physical object, which will be the lacquer, and then it goes through physical processes and becomes another physical object, which is the vinyl record. And that inscription is analog. By nature, it cannot be digital. And we have a physical object, which is analog, but it's also the playing back of this object when we put it on our turntable and on our tone arm, which is always analog. I was talking in a previous video about the gramophone and how the cartridge works on a gramophone, and that is you have a tiny stylus. The stylus is on the cantilever. The end of the cantilever is attached to a diaphragm, and those vibrations cause this diaphragm to wobble. And on the other side of the diaphragm is a large acoustic horn. And when that diaphragm wobbles, it moves air pressure in very much the same way that a speaker driver would. And those movements in air pressure are then amplified by the horn. And not only is that analog, but that is also acoustic. Now, modern day cartridges aren't acoustic, but they are analog. And the way that a modern day cartridge will work, you have a tiny stylus, and that's on the end of a cantilever. On the end of your cantilever, on a moving magnet cartridge, you'll have a magnet, and that will be in between coils to the sides, or on a moving coil you'll have a kind of set of coils around the cantilever and two big magnets. The movement of the stylus in your record is actually kind of making the whole cantilever move, and as the magnet moves in between the coils, this induces an electromagnetic voltage. This creates electricity. And when you realise this, you can actually think of the cartridge as a generator. It's not as if there's electricity kind of moving up one cable, going through the cartridge, going out the other cable. No, not at all. It is a generator. It produces energy that goes in one direction. Scrap that, it doesn't go in one direction. It's more nuanced than that. But anyway, and this is why vinyl playback is always analog, because there are no digital steps in the creation of the audio signal. There is nothing digital about the way that the cartridge generates and makes electricity, which is the audio signal itself. What is up for debate is the quality of the recording and the mastering that's cut to make the vinyl. Does vinyl still have signal purity if there are digital steps in the recording and mastering? I'll leave that one to you guys. Personally, I have some half-speed mastered reissues which are made using digital steps, which sound pretty close, if not just as good as my AAA records. I'm kind of agnostic when it comes to signal purity in the recording chain. To me, if it sounds good, it sounds good. When talking about vinyl sound and its quality, audiophiles tend to get a bit hung up on the recording and mastering chain. But the discussion on vinyl playback is a little bit lacking. As a manufacturer of turntables and tone arms, naturally my focus is more on vinyl playback. And what I've been mulling over for a few years is that vinyl sound isn't just about analog, it's also about electricity. I was talking earlier about how the cartridge is a generator, how every time you play it, it's creating brand new electricity. But what does the rest of the system do? You've got your amplifier, your DAC, your CD player, your streamer, your preamp. They don't create electricity. They take electricity. And if there's one thing that you take from this video, is this point. Vinyl creates electricity. The playback between the cartridge and the vinyl is creating brand new electricity. The rest of the system takes electricity. The reason that this is so important is because, as almost all audiophiles will know, mains electricity is incredibly noisy. And you can try and get around this with, say, a massive battery. And it sounds better, but it's not an ultimate solution because all stored electricity is inherently noisy. And this is why audio electronics engineers spend so much time labouring over the power supply for any electronic component. They're trying their best to reduce mains noise because, to some degree, that noise will always interfere with the audio signal. And I'm pretty sure that this is accepted knowledge. If you scroll through the comment sections of any kind of audiophile channel or forum, you'll get people saying that their system sounds a lot better in the evening when the local factories have powered down for the day. Or even the kind of classical cable denier stance, which is why would you spend a load of money on fancy power cables when you have thousands of meters of crappy cables supplying noisy mains? Which maybe one day I'll share my stance on that, but not today. Or even the system that I actually have on my desk here at work. I have a audiophile amplifier. We work in a factory. Every time somebody turns on a machine, there's a huge pop in the system. Let me know in the comments if you've had similar experiences. I imagine a lot of you have. Hi, I'm quickly interrupting this video just to ask that if you're finding it worthwhile, please could you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and also press the bell notification. It really helps us to carry on making these videos. And yeah, what we want to do is carry on having open conversations about vinyl replay and also giving you insights into how we've been making turntables and tone arms in-house in the UK since 1986. Well, not me personally, because I'm 31 and that's... Anyway, you get the idea. So thanks, and back to the video. Any source component that you're using, whether that's a CD player or a streamer or a DAC, that has to take existing electricity from the mains. Try and reduce it, smooth it out. It does this successfully to a degree, but there will always be interference. And your source components are trying to create an audio signal using that noisy electricity. Where vinyl playback is different is that, as I say, it's a generator. It's creating its own electricity, which then goes largely uninterrupted up to the phono stage. Noise from the electricity in the phono stage is largely blocked by either a large capacitor or a DC blocker or diodes that are placed in front of the inputs to the phono stage. And you're probably thinking, but wait, all of this still has to go through the same system. And you're totally right, it does. But the point I'm trying to make is that the creation of the signal, which is probably the most crucial part, is free from a lot of the electrical noise that other non-analog source components face. And make no mistake, the creation of an audio signal in the digital domain is by no means perfect. And it's actually what got me started off thinking about this in the first place, which was an interview from High End Munich a few years ago between John Darko and Rob Watts, who's a digital design consultant at Chord Electronics. Watts says, the big problem with the current digital is the timing of transients. And when you put the digital signal into an interpolation filter, and every single DAC on the planet has got an interpolation filter, the timing of transients is all wrong. And this shifting backwards and forwards of the timing of transients confuses the brain, and as a result, your instruments lack separation, you don't get timbre variation, and you can't locate the instruments in space. Now, what was really interesting about this to me was that Rob Watts isn't a turntable manufacturer. He's not trying to sell anything in the analog domain. He is a digital design consultant. Here he was talking about a product called the Quintet M Scaler, which essentially improves digital audio signal quality, and I've heard this and it's actually really good. It had a lot of depth, it had a lot of space in its image. The things that Watts is talking about in terms of separation and space, it did really well, and I was very surprised when I heard it. I haven't had a chance to directly compare it with vinyl, so the jury's out on that one, but nonetheless, as digital products go, the Quintet M Scaler was really good. And those aspects of kind of separation and soundstage depth and width and height are all part of what we call transients. Now, when talking about the Quintet M Scaler, Rob Watts says that part of the reason that it can produce good transients is simply because of the more processing power you've got delivers much better sound quality, because you can more accurately reconstruct the timing of transients. If you wanted to perfectly reconstruct the original timing, you would need an infinite amount of processing. And Watts does go on to say that the algorithm used to construct perfect transients is even more important than the processing power. But this point on processing power I found very interesting. With digital, Watts is saying that better transients are beginning to be delivered by using huge amounts of processing power, going through extremely complicated algorithms to enhance the digital signal. And obviously, more processing power, large amounts of processing power, comes from electricity. Whether the power supply on the Quintet is able to completely smooth that out, I don't know. But the case for vinyl comes in direct contrast to this. Vinyl playback doesn't require large amounts of processing power. It doesn't need to go through any kind of steps. It can be in a completely passive system where it's just corrected in a phonostage for a RI AA curve and then amplified and then out of your speakers. So in that kind of passive chain, there's very few places where the signal can get corrupted, where the timing could go out of whack or the kind of whole transients can get muddied. There is obviously varying degrees to transient delivery, but because vinyl playback uses its own generator, it doesn't suffer from electrical interference when it's creating its signal. And it has a signal purity that the rest of the system doesn't. And with great vinyl playback, this often results in audibly better transients, which means the music has more space to it. It has more depth, width, height, better note decay, bloom, extension. All of these things are within the transient domain. And I would argue that it's this ability that makes great vinyl playback more natural, more engaging, higher fidelity. And by that I mean it sounds more real because it sounds more present. Vinyl playback is by no means perfect. There are differences between the solutions offered by different brands. The interference that vinyl playback suffers from is mechanical, because any unwanted vibration is interfering with your little generator, the cartridge. We've spent decades obsessed with this problem, making products that reduce vibration and deliver better transients, and in doing so, deliver a sound that is more present, sounds more lifelike. And you can check out some of these products, which start at just £30, and that will be in a link in the description. I've also written an article talking about transients, electricity, and vinyl playback, which you can read for free, and that will also be linked somewhere in the description. If you've made it this far, you are either a triggered digital-only type or a true vinyl believer, and for that I thank you. As I say, this is something I've been mulling over for a few years. It's a very nuanced topic. So if you have something to add, please put it in the comments below. I'd genuinely love to know your thoughts. We're looking to grow this channel, so if you have any questions, please chuck them in the comments. We will be making more of these, and I'd love to be able to answer your questions. That might well be the topic for our next video. So, thank you for watching, and whatever your system is, happy listening.